private message is a private message. And if a person who was on the private message wanted to be public, that person would have made it public. And unfortunately, when you die, you don't have a choice to make it public or private.
A group text chain that has been made known and released by Candace Owens. I first want to say the reason I didn't share that screen grab publicly is because it was a private exchange. But I did share it with some people in government because it happened really quick. It was, it took 33 hours for authorities to get their suspect. And in those first moments, we wanted no stone unturned. We wanted to leave nothing unturned.
Did this have anything to do with who killed Charlie? So any effort, in my opinion, to promote this as a thing is literally spitting on Charlie's grave, in my personal opinion.
Okay, so the pro-Israel side lost Charlie Kirk. That's what he said in his message, in his own words. Now, he may have been venting. He may have been expressing frustration. He obviously was doing that. He may not have flipped over to being actually actively anti-Israel. He didn't say that, but he did say that, hey, they lost me. And they lost him because of how he was being treated and what he saw behind closed doors. And he was obviously not alone in feeling that way. Because, listen, the pro-Israel side, as Charlie called it, has lost the majority of the American public.
A matter of the soul. Officer Tatum versus Matt Walsh on Charlie Kirk's legacy. Let me tell you something that cuts to the bone of what we're witnessing here. We're watching two men grapple with the same devastating reality. The September 10, 2025 assassination of Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University. But they're doing it in ways that reveal fundamentally different understandings of what matters when a good man dies and can no longer speak for himself. The unbearable weight of a dead man's words. Picture this. Tyler Robinson sits in custody, charged with 7 counts including murder. Charlie Kirk shooting suspect charged with murder as prosecutors say they'll seek the death penalty. While the conservative movement tears itself apart over text messages. Not just any text messages. The private frustrations of a 31-year-old man who will never get to explain what he meant, never get to add context, never get to say, "You misunderstood me." Officer Tatum understands something profound here that Matt Walsh seems to miss. The dead deserve silence until justice is served. Listen to the anguish in Tatum's voice. A private message is a private message, and if a person who was on the private message wanted to be public, that person would have made it public. And unfortunately, when you die, you don't have a choice to make it public or private.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. I want to address the text messages that were leaked. And I'm going to be honest, you got to give some credit to Candace Owens for bringing receipts from what she said. I don't like that the text messages were released, but let me just add this, because Andrew in the podcast said that this was the screenshot that he took and disseminated to other people, which somehow this got in the hands of Candace Owens, and Candace Owens put it out on the internet. So it doesn't appear that this somehow came from Candace initially getting into the system and finding this stuff. It came from Andrew, who screenshotted this and sent it to somebody that ended up getting in the hands of Candace Owens. Or maybe he sent it to her directly. I don't really know. But let me give my thoughts on the existence of the text message, what I think, and then we're going to get to Andrew Covid's response of the text message, and I want to play Rob McCoy's statement as well. I do not like this drama because Charlie Kirk cannot defend himself. He's dead. So whether he liked Israel, didn't like Israel, whether he was going left, right, down the middle, none of it matters because he cannot defend himself and he's no longer with us. So his strive to be in a certain position or take a political stance, it really is irrelevant at this point, unfortunately. And I don't like the leaking and screenshotting and sending information out on the internet into the ether, simply because a private message is a private message. And if a person who was on the private message wanted to be public, that person would have made it public.
This isn't just about respecting privacy. This is about respecting the finality of death, that terrible, irreversible moment when someone loses the ability to defend themselves, to clarify, to grow, to change their mind. The investigative catastrophe no one's talking about. Here's where Tatum's law enforcement background becomes absolutely critical, and where I believe he demonstrates wisdom that transcends this specific controversy. Federal investigators are still working the case, having found no evidence linking the shooting to left-wing groups, no evidence found yet to ties between Charlie Kirk's shooting and left-wing groups, officials say. Robinson is being held without bail on charges including aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm, and obstruction of justice. And in the middle of this active investigation, people are leaking private communications to score political points. Tatum explains with the clarity of someone who's actually worked cases. When investigators are trying to get to the bottom of solving a crime, they cannot have people leaking and disclosing information that's only privy to the FBI or only somebody involved in the investigation would know.
Because I think it's important to hear. He said, I was an eyewitness to something, and the FBI saying don't talk about it. Why? Because it may compromise the case. That is key. And this is why a lot of people at Turning Point ain't saying nothing. Because if you were a part of the investigation as an eyewitness, or you have any leverage or any part of this investigation, you could screw the entire investigation up by running your mouth about things that are not privy in the public. I don't know how many times I got to say this. I want people to understand this clearly. When investigators are trying to get to the bottom of solving a crime, they cannot have people leaking and disclosing information that's only privy to the FBI or only somebody involved in the investigation would know. Why? Because when they have a suspect B and they bring him in and they start questioning him or her, when the person start divulging information, they can make a clear determination. Whoa, how does she know about the bag that was left in the alleyway? We never made that public. So that means only a person involved in this case would even know that information. But when you start disclosing information like it's going out of style to everybody in the country, they don't have a good enough way to interrogate a person because they don't know if that person authentically is involved and they know things or they heard it on the internet. And for everybody out here saying they're covering up, no, they cannot disclose everything they know. Do you want the case to be thrown out? Do you want the killer or potential killer of Charlie Kirk to get away scot-free on technicalities and inadmissible evidence in the investigation or in the court proceeding? Make your mind up. And I'm warning everybody that's out there that actually care about this case. If you don't care about Charlie, you don't care about this case, then do what you want to do. But if you care about Charlie, you care about this case, you care about justice, you need to stop putting information out there that could be compromising to this investigation. You could find yourself getting subpoenaed in the court as well. I said this on my last video. If you are out in the public domain saying that you're getting proprietary investigatory knowledge or information, that means you're talking to people that the FBI isn't talking to, or you're saying that a person called you and made a statement contrary to the statement that they made to the FBI, you are now a part of the investigation. The defense team wants you to come and testify that you heard this because the prosecution is saying, no, we heard this. You're going to find yourself being involved and subpoenaed in the court, testifying on behalf of the defense because you want to put information out there premature to the court proceeding. Finish it.
This isn't theoretical. Legal experts are already noting timeline issues that could hurt the prosecution's case. Timeline issues could hurt case against Charlie Kirk's accused assassin, Fox News. And every leaked piece of information, every public speculation, every conspiracy theory floated on social media becomes potential ammunition for the defense to claim contamination of the jury pool, prosecutorial misconduct, or investigative incompetence. Andrew Colvett admitted he screenshotted these messages and sent them to people in government within the first 33 hours after Charlie's murder. But why? What investigative purpose did Charlie's frustration about donors serve? Tatum asks the question no one wants to answer. What in it needs to be investigated? That's all I'm saying. What about this text message that needed to be investigated? The uncomfortable implication hangs there. Was someone suggesting Israel might be involved? Because if so, just say it.
But I want to take the start of this show to address some of the things that have been going around on public, namely about a group text chain that has been made known and released by Candace Owens. And I just want to address it head on because, that was a screen grab that I had shared with people. So it is authentic.
Time out. This is my problem with this. Because I didn't like that the text message was put out there. But then the question remains, in my personal opinion, is why does anybody need to be screenshotting and sending this out anyways? Potentially, this is how it got in the hands of Candace Owens to put out in the first place. So I think internally, nobody could be mad at the stuff getting out if internally the screenshots are happening there and disseminated anywhere. I think that was a big major flaw that happened with this text message scandal, is that it should have never been screenshotted in the first place and disseminated from anybody. But when you do that, it's in the hands of everybody now. And now the whole world can see these messages. That's just my 2 cent roll clip.
And I want to go into it because I actually am really excited that the truth is out there. I first want to say the reason I didn't share that screen grab publicly is because it was a private exchange, and I felt like it didn't necessarily comport with things that were already public. I wanted to not betray my friends' trust in that way. But I did share it with some people in government because it happened really quick. It was, it took 33 hours for authorities to get their suspect. And in those first moments, we wanted no stone unturned. We wanted to leave nothing unturned. So I shared it with a few people. Don't know where it went from there, apparently. But
keep going.
Here we are. So,
all right, there you go. All right, come on, Nick. All right, so so what would I say about this? I can see the naysayers coming out and saying this. And by the way, I love Andrew. I think he's one of the most authentic people I met. I love him to death. But this text message thread, screenshot, sent to government officials. Why? What in it needs to be investigated? That's all I'm saying. What about this text message that needed to be investigated? Was it that somebody thought that they needed to investigate Jewish donors? Did somebody come out and think that they need to be investigated, that maybe, just maybe, Charlie Kirk's theology has something to do with him getting killed? Maybe, just maybe, is the text thread exposing certain people in the text thread that they need to be investigated? What does that even mean? I personally believe that, I don't know, it just makes things more complicated because people are saying, was there concerns about anything in the text? When I read the text, there's nothing really concerning that the government should know about or that the FBI should investigate personally. And no stone unturned, I understand that point, right? But it does implicate that is somebody thinking that Israel has something to do with it. If that's the case, then I want people to come out and say, we initially thought that Israel had something to do with it. That's why I did this. I just want people to just say it. Just say it. If you thought that, just say it.
But the dancing around the issue, the vague references to leaving no stone unturned, it all creates space for conspiracy theories to flourish while potentially damaging the actual criminal case. Candace Owens has continued to suggest Charlie's murder involves some greater plot, claiming he felt blackmailed by Israel and suggesting a federal conspiracy is afoot. This isn't investigation, it's exploitation. The human heart versus the political point. Now let's talk about Matt Walsh's analysis, because he's not wrong about everything. He makes legitimate observations about the state of political discourse around Israel. His point that the pro-Israel side has lost the majority of the American public and is losing support globally reflects a genuine shift in public opinion that deserves examination. He identifies a real problem, the all-or-nothing purity test that pushes away potential allies. He speaks from personal experience when he says he's been labeled woke and anti-Semitic despite consistent positions simply for not towing the line 100%. But here's what Matt Walsh fundamentally misses. Charlie Kirk is dead. This isn't an academic debate about messaging strategies and political persuasion. This is about a young man with a wife and children who was murdered in front of an audience while doing what he loved, Every minute spent analyzing his private frustrations, every moment spent using his words as evidence in some larger ideological argument is a minute not spent focused on getting justice for his murder. Walsh says he was genuinely surprised by the texts and that they should make the pro-Israel side stop and think. But Tatum cuts to the heart of why this entire conversation is premature and inappropriate. We shouldn't be wasting our time talking about stuff like this, but since it's out there, I gotta say something about it. There's resignation in that statement, a recognition that once something is public, it must be addressed, but also a clear sense that this is not the time. The maturity gap, age, wisdom, and understanding human complexity. Tatum makes an observation that demonstrates remarkable emotional intelligence. I understand Charlie because he's 31 years old. Charlie has never in his life been unpopular amongst his peers. When you start to feel the pressure that people are turning on you, it makes you feel some type of way, especially when it's not accurate. This is empathy, people. This is understanding that a 31-year-old man processing donor pressure, political backlash, and the weight of leading a major organization might vent in a group chat in ways he wouldn't say publicly. That he might write things in frustration he'd later regret or clarify. Tatum continues, I'm a little more mature. I'm a little older than he is, and I got older kids and stuff, so I've been through a lot more. And that's why it don't make me waver, because I don't give a fuck about what you say about me. See the difference? Tatum disagrees with Charlie's sentiment. He's crystal clear about that. I disagree with Charlie's sentiment and behavior on this topic, but he understands it as part of human growth and processing difficult situations. Then Tatum delivers what might be the most important point in either video. There's some things that people do to me that make me mad. I'm not happy with everything everybody does, even organizations that I work with. I'm not always happy with the things they do and the way they treat me. But a lot of times, I'm not going to say everything publicly because it's a private matter that we can address. And what I have learned as a young man growing up and learning and growing, things change. A conversation can change the way you think about something. One conversation. This is wisdom. This is understanding that humans are not static beings locked into every opinion they express in a moment of frustration. Charlie Kirk might have had that conversation. He might have processed his feelings and come to a different conclusion. We'll never know because he's dead. The loyalty question. What survives politics? Here's where Tatum absolutely soars above the political fray and touches something eternal. Friendship runs deeper than politics. There are people that I disagree with that are my friends, and I love them more than I love politics. And I'd rather have a conversation with someone who's my friend than to throw them under the bus in public. Because when y'all done listening to me after I say something else you don't like, you will turn on me. My friend won't turn on me. When we're done and we're old and nobody care about what we're talking about no more, your friend will be there for you. This is the soul of the matter. Tatum understands that social media followers are fickle, that political movements rise and fall, but real relationships built on loyalty, understanding, and genuine care, those endure. He continues with brutal honesty. I have been hurt by so many people that follow me on social media. But then people that don't follow me on social media, that are my real friends, have been behind the scenes supportive of me when y'all turned on me. Walsh doesn't engage with this dimension at all. His entire analysis treats Charlie's texts as data points in an ideological war. He's so focused on what the texts reveal about the pro-Israel side that he misses what they reveal about human beings under pressure. The donor debate, freedom versus coercion. Both men address the donor issue, but from different angles. Tatum is clear. Donors have every right to withdraw funding. If you are a donor and you're giving $2 million a year and you got somebody on stage like this that's antithetical to the organization that you're supporting, I don't see there be a problem whatsoever with saying, well, I'm not spending my money in this way. He draws from his own experience. I'm my own man. I do all my own stuff. This is all my money going, so nobody can tell me nothing, and I ain't taking no money for nobody to tell me nothing. Walsh frames it differently, seeing the donor withdrawal as bullying and part of a larger pattern of all or nothing thinking that alienates allies. Here's my take. Tatum is more realistic about how the world works. Money comes with strings. That's just reality. Charlie had the freedom to keep Tucker Carlson at his event. The donor had the freedom to withdraw funding. That's not bullying. That's two parties exercising their autonomy. What becomes bullying is when either side tries to force the other's hand through public pressure campaigns, which is exactly what's happening now with these leaked text messages. The biblical bedrock.
Tatum makes his position unshakable. There is no donor. There is no pro-Israeli person that's going to make me change my position on supporting Israel because it's biblical. Unless the Bible change, I will never change my support for the state of Israel and its existence. This is conviction. This is a man who knows what he believes and why he believes it, independent of political wins or financial incentives. He continues, I don't have to like anything Benjamin Netanyahu does. Although I think that what he's doing in the war is reasonable, I don't agree with everything he's doing. See the nuance there? You can support Israel's right to exist while disagreeing with specific policies. You can maintain biblical convictions while exercising political judgment. Walsh, by contrast, maintains his not pro or anti-Israel stance, saying, I'm not pro or anti any foreign country. I'm very consistent about that. That's a legitimate position, but it lacks the moral clarity that comes from biblical conviction. It's political pragmatism rather than theological grounding. The screenshots that should have never been. Let's talk about Andrew Kovit's role here, because both videos address it and it's crucial. Kovit admits that he screenshotted the messages and sent them to people in government, and later they ended up with Candace Owens. Tatum is righteously indignant about this. This is my problem with this, because I didn't like that the text message was put out there. But then the question remains, in my personal opinion, is why does anybody need to be screenshotting and sending this out anyways? Bingo! The moment those screenshots were created and distributed, control was lost. You can't put that genie back in the bottle. And now a murder investigation is being contaminated by political controversy. Kovit's explanation that he wanted no stone unturned rings hollow when you examine what information the text actually contained. They showed Charlie was frustrated with donors. They showed he considered changing his public stance on Israel. They showed nothing about his murder. Unless, of course, someone thought Israeli interests might be involved, which federal investigators have found no evidence to support. In that case, the screenshots become part of a conspiracy theory that dishonors Charlie's memory and potentially damages the case against his actual killer. The exploitation factor. Candace's role. Candace Owens has continued suggesting Charlie Kirk's murder involves a greater plot, claiming he felt blackmailed by Israel. We did this. Candace Owens takes credit for FBI director's statement on Charlie Kirk conspiracies. She's taken credit for FBI statements addressing conspiracy theories. She's turned a murder investigation into content. Tatum doesn't explicitly attack Candace in his video, but his position is clear. This should have remained private. Walsh doesn't directly criticize her either, instead treating the text as newsworthy revelations that deserve analysis. But let's be honest about what's happening here. A woman who claims to have been Charlie's friend is using his private words he can't defend or contextualize to build a narrative that serves her brand and her audience. Owens has made unfounded accusations, including suggesting former Utah gubernatorial candidate Phil Lyman was part of a plot to take out Kirk, leading Lyman to call her claims mocking, slanderous libel. Charlie Kirk texts, Candace Owens text thread revealed. This is an investigation. This isn't justice. This is exploitation. The final reckoning. What actually matters? At the end of the day, we're left with competing visions of what this moment requires. Matt Walsh sees an opportunity for ideological examination. He wants the pro-Israel side to engage in honest self-reflection and self-analysis because they're losing the argument. He makes valid points about messaging failures and the dangers of purity tests. His analysis is cerebral, detached, focused on the meta-narrative about political persuasion. Officer Tatum sees a murdered victim whose memory deserves protection and whose family deserves justice. He wants people to shut up and let investigators do their work. He understands that Charlie was a complex human being who might have said things in private he wouldn't say in public. And that's okay, because we all do that. His perspective is grounded in loyalty, wisdom, and respect for the dead. I stand with Tatum, and here's why. Justice comes first. Every leaked piece of information, every conspiracy theory floated, every political point scored using Charlie's private words makes it harder to ensure Tyler Robinson faces appropriate consequences for 7 counts, including murder. Charlie Kirk, shooting suspect, charged with murder, as prosecutors say, they'll seek the death penalty. That should be the priority, period. The dead deserve dignity. Charlie Kirk can't clarify what he meant. He can't explain the context. He can't tell us what conversation might have changed his mind the next day. Using his words as ammunition in ideological warfare when he can't defend himself is ghoulish. Human complexity matters more than political purity. Tatum understands that people vent, people grow, people change. Walsh treats the text as fixed evidence of Charlie's true position, missing the fluidity of human thought and emotion. Loyalty transcends politics. When everything else fades, the social media followers, the political movements, the donor dollars, what remains are the people who actually knew and loved Charlie. They deserve space to grieve without having his private frustrations weaponized in political war. Wisdom requires restraint. Tatum knows when to speak and when to be silent. He addresses the issue because it's public, but makes clear this conversation shouldn't be happening. Walsh dives in enthusiastically, using the moment for political commentary. The heartbreak at the center. You know what breaks my heart about all this? Charlie Kirk was 31 years old. He was trying to navigate impossible tensions, building a youth movement, managing donors, platforming diverse voices, staying true to his convictions while remaining open to conversation. He was trying to figure it out, and he was killed before he could. Now, his private struggles are public entertainment. His frustrations are political fodder. His widow and children have to watch strangers dissect his character based on text messages he probably forgot he wrote. Tatum gets this. You can hear it when he says, "If I die, I'm going to be mad at y'all. Y'all better not ever share my stuff when I die, because some of y'all going to have your feelings hurt." There's humor there, but also truth. We all have private thoughts, frustrations, and moments of venting that don't represent our full character or final positions. The difference is, most of us don't have those moments leaked to the world after we die. What this moment demands? This moment doesn't demand political analysis. It doesn't demand ideological point scoring. It doesn't demand that we use Charlie Kirk's private words to prove our own arguments. This moment demands that we let the man rest. Let investigators build their case without contamination. Let his family grieve without speculation. Let his friends remember him as they knew him, not as internet detectives imagine him. And when the trial comes, when prosecutors seek the death penalty against Tyler Robinson, then we can talk about justice. Then we can talk about what Charlie Kirk stood for and what his life meant. But until then, as Officer Tatum so powerfully argues, we need to keep it private, keep it classy, and keep our focus on what actually matters, ensuring the man who killed Charlie Kirk faces justice for his crime. That's my take. Officer Tatum speaks with the voice of maturity, loyalty, and practical wisdom. Matt Walsh speaks with the voice of political analysis and ideological examination. Both are smart men making real points. But only one of them seems to understand that a murdered man's private words should stay private, especially when making them public does nothing to bring his killer to justice. Choose loyalty over politics. Choose dignity over clicks. Choose justice over ideology. That's what Charlie Kirk deserves. That's what his family deserves. And that's why Officer Tatum gets it right.